Good evening, everyone. This meeting is now called to order. Thank you, everyone, for attending what is probably the first virtual meeting of the Arlington County Human Rights Commission. It's good to see everyone. It's kind of hard to believe that the last time that we met as a group was February 13th. The coronavirus pandemic has really had a tremendous impact on the operations of pretty much all of the commissions here in Arlington. And since our last meeting, much has happened. First, I want to recognize everyone who is here for the meeting. We have Latoya, we have Daniel, we have Susie, we have Walter, we have Paul, we have Kyle, we have Roland, and we also have our newest member, Whitney. So Whitney, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to join the commission. My name is Whitney Kernodle. I met a few of you, many of you, gosh, it sounds like a century ago, but I am a co-founder and the current vice president of Black Parents of Arlington, and we were honored with your James Hunter Award, and I was able to give the speech on behalf of Black Parents of Arlington. I am been an Arlingtonian for 15, almost 16 years. My two sons were born here. One is a almost 15-year-old going to Wakefield in the immersion program. My younger son is a rising 8th grader at HB. I'm also on the steering committee for Arlington for Justice. I'm a lifelong human rights advocate and social attorney and social justice advocate. So when I tell you it's such a pleasure to be amongst you guys and doing this work, I'm super honored to be here, and I'm excited to work with you.
Great. And welcome, Whitney. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As I previously informed the members of the commission, this meeting is recorded so that we can have an orderly meeting here. The chair requests that those commissioners who might have a question or who might want to make a remark, simply raise your hand. Now, there's supposed to be a feature on here which allows you to literally sort of raise your hand. But unfortunately, some of us have not been able to get that feature. And I'm sure it's probably all of us as opposed to who have not been able to get that. Am I correct? Does anyone have that feature? Oh, Susie does. Okay. Kyle, did you ever get it? No. Okay. So if you can just raise your hand, I'll make sure that you have the opportunity to ask your question. Also, I want to let you know that for each item on the agenda, I'm going to allow a period for questions pretty much after the presentation. So let's go to the agenda. The second item on that agenda is the minutes. Now, we did not have a forum in February, so we did not get a chance to formally approve the January minutes. The February minutes and January minutes would have been approved in March, but for the fact that the county canceled all of the commission members, so we were not able to meet in March. So therefore, the items before the commission at this time for approval are the January minutes and the February minutes. Now, the January minutes have already been corrected. So does anyone have at this time any corrections to the February minutes? Okay. Since there aren't any corrections to the February minutes, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the January and February minutes.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
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 Very good. The minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda.
I'm sorry, it's Gurjeet. Quick one. Who seconded the motion?
Walter.
Okay. Thank you.
The next item on the, all of a sudden I have this notice that the recording has started and I don't see anyone anymore.
I've got the same. I don't know why it's showing that, but it is.
Yeah, I got to.
Is someone controlling a screen sharing maybe?
Well, I just clicked
It
on
looks
that.
like Paul. It looks like Paul is sharing his screen. Like it looks like Paul L is sharing the screen, and then I think it just depends on what device you're using.
So if you want to,
Yeah, around with everything to get the video to work, but I'm not knowingly sharing my screen.
If I click on dismiss, is that going to,
I just did.
would that eliminate? No, it didn't.
If you click on request control, whoever wants to control it.
But you can. Roland, pressing dismiss won't interrupt it.
Okay, but I still can't seem to get out of it. It's now blocked. There it is. I'm out of it. Great. All right, next item. Wow, that's something.
I think that's sorry.
Public. Gertie, do we have anyone from the public?
not on which I'm aware, and also we did not receive any advance public comment.
Okay, very good. Next item is the executive director's report. Gertie?
Yes. So thank you all for joining again, and hopefully everyone's doing well and is safe. A couple of items. So first, I wanted to share that as of today, the county manager appointed a chief equity officer for the county. That role will be filled by Samia Beard, who is currently and was currently, she was the deputy county manager overseeing zoning and CPHD. She's now, but she worked a lot with GARE and the cohort on race and equity. So she will now be in the position of chief equity officer. That's all the information I have for now. I believe a press release will be going out shortly in the next day or two. We're very excited about that. It is a standalone position reporting directly to the county manager in CMO, in the county manager's office. Second, the barrier analysis. We are continuing on with the project, which started in December. It is still on track for completion within the time frame. I think at last check, when we spoke in February, they were about 2 weeks behind. They're still around the same amount of time, so it should be going fine. Partly it's just the pandemic. It's kind of wreaked havoc on everything. But there are 4 different phases of the project, and they are currently on, I think, working on 2 and 3. So part of that will be involving surveys and focus groups, and that's what they're starting on now. So we're really excited about that. And then finally, the AAP is still under its final review, but we've already started trying to find out how and when the data will be available. In July is usually when the data is available from HR to get to the vendor. So as I mentioned last time, this was as expected, a longer process than we wanted because it was a vendor we were using for the first time as opposed to in-house. So we will keep you posted on any more updates that come from that. Other than that, I think you all know that we've been working virtually, but we have seen no interruption in service or anything like that, or any particular uptick in complaints from residents since the pandemic began. I think it's about all I have, Roland, unless I'm missing something there.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Gertie?
I don't see anyone's hand raised. If anyone doesn't have that feature and you want to raise your hand physically in case you have it, or just introduce yourself if I can't see your face and you do have a question, but I don't see any right now.
I don't see any. Okay, very good. The next item on the agenda is the statistical report. Does anyone have any questions of the executive director regarding the statistics? Okay, since there aren't any questions, we'll go to the next item on the agenda, which is the EO Standing Committee report, and Kyle.
Hi, everybody. This is Kyle Tibbetts. Our last meeting was the 3rd of March, so we really haven't had any discussions since then due to the COVID-19, but we were still not able to approve the minutes from September and December 2019 because we did not have a quorum. We also are having 3 of the members that were at the end of the year are now no longer with us. Abe, and Maribel, and Farzine are being replaced by new employee members. We have a new member, Captain Tyson Stanislaus from the Arlington County Fire Department, who joined us. And we have 2 new employee members that are being vetted right now by the county manager's office. Also, you heard from Gurjeet about the barrier analysis. That's still on track. But we still have not seen the affirmative action plan for FY 2020 released to the public. And also we know that FY 2021 started on the 1st of July. So they will be releasing those statistics from, I believe, HR this month. We're also working with the county board. We would like to have the county manager come to the meeting to discuss the recruitment efforts going on, but we haven't decided when that will be. We're also talking about the annual report. We'll be putting that together as far as annual report that's due within 60 days at the end of the fiscal year, which ended the 30th of June. We also of note, our last meeting, we found out that there hasn't been an employee engagement survey completed within the county for the employees for the last 5 to 7 years. So we're going to find out and dig in to figure out why that's not occurring, if there's a funding issue, budget problems, something like that. But we don't know exactly why one hasn't been conducted. Also, the committee agreed. Question? Oh, committee also agreed to invite the county department leads to the human rights meeting to discuss their department heads organization and the department recruiting, diversity, inclusion programs, anything that has to do with human rights issues. And we're going to start that with the police department. We have not sent out a formal invite yet, but we would like the Human Rights Commission to consider a 30-minute meet and greet and discussion Q&A at the next Human Rights Commission here in the next sometime this year, the first one with the police department. But we'll get with the next meeting. We'll have a schedule laid out, figure out when we can do that. And then tentatively, we have our next meeting scheduled for the 17th of August, pending approval from the county board to do a virtual meeting. And that will be held like this format on Microsoft Teams. And that's all I have.
Any questions of Kyle? Kyle, I have one. The meeting that you want to have with the police chief, is that a meeting of just the EEO standing committee, or is that a meeting of the commission, the Human Rights Commission, and you want the police chief to do a presentation to the commission?
We think it'll be part of the EEO standing committee's invitation, but we would like them to come to the Human Rights Commission because it'll be open to the entire commission to discuss and have more questions and answers. So it will be, since we only meet up to 4 times a year, we feel that if we bring it back to the commission, it will open up more opportunities for meetings because of scheduling conflicts and things like that. So if it's approved by our commission, we would like to bring them back at one of the next available commission meetings, pending scheduling.
It would be, this is Roland again, it would be good if you can schedule something with the police chief pretty much as soon as possible, because I know there has been some interaction between the police department or some concerns about the police department addressed by Arlington for Justice. And I recently saw something today, statistics that were put out, I believe, by the police department, in which the police department said that half of all of their arrests were people of color, which I find very disturbing. And of that, of the remaining 35%, the remaining 35% were white, but they, for some reason, count the Hispanic population as part of their statistics for those who are white. It doesn't make any sense, but I would really like to have the police chief to come and speak to the commission. So I would like for you to see if you can schedule something like that with him as soon as possible, because I think there is a concern about that.
So noted, Roland. I'll do that. Then find out the next available dates that we're going to have the commission meetings scheduled and work with their office to have them come by.
Also, it's my understanding that the police chief is going to retire at the end of the year. And I don't know what is the process that the county has in place, or when they want to start the process of a replacement for the police chief. But I think that is something that pretty much comes under the jurisdiction of the standing committee. So it would be good if the standing committee can look into that and find out what is the process, when they plan on starting the process, and whether or not in that whole process there's going to be any community involvement in the selection.
Understood.
Roland?
Yes.
I have a quick question, just a comment for Kylie on this, and then a question as well. If you're, so Kyle, if you want to connect with me and you know what after you talk with Roland on the date for the next HRC meeting to which you want to invite JFAR, let me know, and I can help you facilitate that. I can reach out to him. And then you mentioned that you wanted to invite the county manager to discuss recruitment. Were you referencing you generally wanted to invite Mark Schwartz to discuss diversity and recruitment for the county as a whole at a committee meeting or at an HRC meeting?
That would be at a committee meeting.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and Kyle, to find out about the recruitment for the police, this is Roland again. To find out about the recruitment for the police chief, that may be something that you can, if you can find out that as soon as possible and just inform us, that would be great, as opposed to having that knowledge and then we have to wait until we have another commission meeting before we know that. Because there are citizens, I think, of Arlington who have an expressed interest pretty much in that.
Right, and if we've already started vetting some questions through basically a scripted Q&A format so that they can prepare for the meeting, primarily on metrics. But if you, as commissioners, have any thoughts on any questions specifically you want to address in this survey to the police department, it's not just going to be the police department. We're going to do it heads of all the departments over time of several years, hopefully. So if you have any thoughts on this initial one, please send an email to me so I can get that onto the paper.
And also the final thing, Kyle, was I received a copy of a memo from the county manager that was pretty much sent to all of the county employees, and it dealt with a matter involving equity and what he referred to as equity policy and practice here in Arlington. And it dealt with a situation, and I'm sure that members of the commission might know of this. There was a family who lived, they live in a neighborhood near Ashland Elementary School, and the little daughter put graffiti on the street in front of the house, and it dealt with certain writings that were supportive of Black Lives Matter. And on Juneteenth Day, 3 city employees came and removed the writings which were on the street. It happened on the day of Juneteenth. It was some complaint that was, I guess, I don't know whether it was filed, I don't know whether it was by email, I don't know whether it was made by the phone, but it was a complaint. And as a result of that, these three employees came and removed the marking. I think not only was the family upset about the markings being removed, and people in that community were upset, but the employees, because there were three Black employees, were also very upset about that as well. The county manager did look into the matter, and apparently that particular day, county board members also showed up, because apparently complaints were made to the county board members by its citizens who were pretty much upset about that. Well, what the county manager did was to circulate to all of the employees a memo describing the event and expressing pretty much his feelings regarding the whole matter, which I think really shows that the county manager was concerned about the whole thing. What I'm concerned about as a citizen of Arlington and as a member of the Human Rights Commission is I'm concerned about the supervisors who approved the removal of the markings. And my question deals with whether or not these supervisors had any sort of sensitivity training regarding the whole matter, because certainly this is something that they should have been sensitive to, and really it never should have been approved. So what I would like for you to do is to check and see what training, if any, these particular department, these DES supervisors go through or have gone through, and whether or not even the Department of Environmental Services Director, Greg Emanuel, went through any sort of training. Because this is an example of actions on the part of county employees and its impact on individual citizens. And this is certainly a matter to which someone there should have been aware of. I'm very much concerned about this because training has always been something, and accountability has always been something that the members of the EEO Advisory Commission has been concerned about. And certainly that is something that we have recommended to the county board in the past, that there be some sort of accountability on the part of department heads. So can you look into that and get back to me regarding any training, if any, that is training, EEO training, diversity training, cultural diversity training that these particular people have gone through.
Yes.
And also,
I got it.
And also the county manager also expressed certain things that they were going to do. That is that his office was pretty much going to do. And I would like for you to look into that. I will send you the memo. And actually what I would do is I would send the memo to all of the members of the commission. And if you can look into that and report to that on the next meeting, I would greatly appreciate that. Okay?
Got it, Roland. Thank
Questions? Okay, good. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is extensions. Gertie?
Hi, Roland. We have no extensions at this time.
Very good. Old business. The first item under old business is the Human Rights Ordinance Amendment. By way of background, members of the commission, the Human Rights Commission had recommended to the county board back in August of last year that the county board amend its human rights ordinance to ban discrimination based on transgender status, and I think gender identity and gender identity as well. And we had not heard anything on that from the county board. I had inquired of the county our county board liaison, Katie, about that. She had informed me that it was at the office of the attorney, and that they were working on it. Several months had passed. I again asked about it, and again she said they were working on it. About a month or two ago, the meeting I had with her, I had again very, very strongly asked as to the status of it, simply because I had informed her that the city of Richmond had already included transgender status and also gender identity in its statute, that the city of Charlottesville had already included that in its status, and the city of Charlottesville did it about 7 years ago. Richmond did it about 3 years ago. And that last December, the city of Alexandria, in less than a month, had amended its human rights ordinance to include that. And so, again, she told me they were gonna look into it. Well, this past year, the General Assembly had amended the human rights ordinance and included that, and I've made that known to her. So the next thing I hear is that it was on the agenda for the county board, and it was on the agenda for the county board at its recess meeting this past June. And Gertrude spoke on behalf of the commission on the proposed amendment. So Gertrude, can you just say a little bit about what now is going to be the process for that?
Sure. So basically, as Roland said, what we did at the last recess meeting was a request to authorize advertisement of a public hearing on the amendment. That will either be the 18th or the 21st, from my understanding, and that has yet to be decided. And I think at that time, I'm not sure if a vote will take place then. I believe it will, but I'm not quite sure. But we'll most likely, our office will be doing a brief presentation similar to what, Roland, you saw at the board meeting on other topics regarding the amendment.
Okay. So, Gertrude, can you find out whether or not they're actually going to vote on that at the July meeting? Because my interpretation of the last conversation that I had with Katie is that they will vote on it at that meeting. So
sure, Roland, I can find out and confirm.
Okay, great. Very good. We are going to have to look at amending the human rights ordinance even after this, because there are certain laws that were passed by the state legislature that I think directly impact us. They passed somewhere in the area of about like 16 laws dealing with LGBTQ issues. They also passed or amended the human rights ordinance to include the ban of discrimination based on source of income. For those members who are not familiar with that, we had a presentation that was made to the Human Rights Commission by the Landlord-Tenant Commission. And the chairman of the Landlord-Tenant Commission had established a discrimination committee. They had looked into the matter of discrimination based on source of income. They did a presentation to us and recommended that we endorse the amending the human rights statute to also include banning discrimination based on source of income. We did pass such a motion with the Human Rights Commission. We notified the Landlord-Tenant Commission of that. The Landlord-Tenant Commission itself did not formally approve it, and that was probably because of the makeup of the Landlord-Tenant Commission. It is made up of not only tenants is made up landlords as well. So there was I guess, a little bit of a give and take regarding from one side regarding whether or not they were even going to recommend that to the county board. Well, they didn't have to worry about that because the state legislature passed that in this past session of the state legislature and amended the state human rights ordinance to include that. So I think because the state human rights ordinance has been amended to include that, then we should also look at that also with the human rights ordinance for Arlington. So at some time, we're going to have to be presenting something to the county board requesting that they pretty much look into that as well. A lot of good laws were passed by this particular legislature. Next item is the Human Rights Campaign Municipal Equality Index. Gertrude, I don't know exactly, or Latoya, I don't know exactly how much you can tell us about that.
So right now it's still confidential, Roland.
Okay.
I don't, and what forgive me, maybe Latoya has it in front of her. I don't know if it's confidential in terms of no publication, but I would err on the side of just confidential, given that we're streaming this and recording it and putting it up. I will just say that we have our draft score. I will say that you'll be very, very pleased with it once we're able to share it, and that it's unprecedented. I'll also share that we are still working on trying to get additional bonus points. If the vote on July 18th or 21st goes forward and we have this amendment to the ordinance take place, well, most likely we think that we would get extra bonus points in the first category for non-discrimination laws at the county level. So we'd be submitting that because we have until the 31st to submit any new information to the HRC.
Very good. Okay.
Yep, and I agree. Confidential.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Thank you, Latoya. Thank you, Gertrude. Okay, next item on the agenda is the Tiffany Johnson Human Rights Forum. Latoya.
Yes. So we actually just had our most recent call today, and so we've met a couple times in the group. We now have Whitney. Thank you, Whitney, for joining our group. And we have Dan, and we have Kyle, Susie, and myself. And so thank you to Susie for bringing this back up, because we had started, of course, planning earlier in the year for a live forum. And of course, with everything else that was disrupted by COVID, this was one of those things. And so Susie brought a great idea to say, hey, this is prime time to kind of really for us to put on a forum, of course, to be done virtually. So we've started having conversations, and the original topic was, around the state of people of color in Arlington. And so the way that we've kind of pivoted that is to just focus on, Black and or, African-American individuals in Arlington and kind of just the state of that. And we're still honing in on if we want to, focus on specific themes, to kind of make it a little bit more narrow and focused. And so today we talked about, and Whitney had a great idea about, kind of hitting on three pillars like criminal justice, housing, and education. And then there's other areas, of course, that we could get into, health and, just so many issues with the racial injustice issues happening, of course, around the nation. But, just really figuring out, do we want to, hone in on specific things, talk about what systemic racism looks like and what that means, and as it relates to all those different categories. So we're still playing with that, but we have kind of built out a list of names of individuals that we would like to see, or groups that we would like to see represented. But the biggest thing is that we want to make sure that we have a date and time, and logistically are able to do so. So we've identified September 3rd as a date, which is a Thursday, that we'd like to hold the program in the evening. And Roland, I know I'd emailed you and you'd responded about kind of the capabilities or what we are able to do, whether or not we are able to put this out as a commission event, which we'd like to, of course. The Tiffany Johnson Forum, on behalf of the Arlington County Human Rights Commission, and if so or not, what are our options in terms of venue, for the platform, virtual platform. And Kyle, looked into, and Kyle, if you want to jump in and give the updates, but, into like which accounts we could use, potentially Microsoft Teams versus Zoom, more likely Zoom. But we did want to understand before we can really push forward and send out or reach out to some of these contacts that we have with various organizations like Black Parents Arlington and NAACP. Whitney's involved with Arlington for Justice, and there's some great people there that we can reach out to Black Lives Matter Arlington folks. And so before we do that, though, we did want to be able to like firmly say that September 3rd at 7 p.m. is the date and time, and that we do have the platform. So I didn't know, Roland, if there's any part to that you can speak to in terms of what our ability might be to do that.
Gertie, can we, if we put in the request now, can we get to use it, the same apparatus that the county board uses for having its county board meetings?
So, right, I mean, I think, I'm not sure what the county is using in terms of what else they're doing. Like, for example, right now we're using Teams. We've also got the streaming. I think I don't see any issue with us putting a Teams kind of event together, and the platform most likely would be Teams. Kyle, I did get a chance to speak with DTS, and for security reasons, while they're trying to get other, they're trying to figure out if they can get additional functionality in other programs that Zoom offers, since Zoom is so popular. They just right now feel very comfortable with Teams over Zoom, so it would most likely be a Teams event. I'd go with that, just for, especially if you're looking at September. As far as the other items, if you would want recording beyond Teams, such as like streaming, YouTube, that type of stuff, I'd have to check with communications and the assistant county manager for that. And I can check and find out to see if they have availability to, kind of like they're doing today, to hop on and then get back to you if September 3rd works. But as us putting together, if you have a presentation or speakers lined up and doing something like this through Teams is very simple enough. You just basically invite people through Teams and it's fine. It's just the streaming aspect and the other things that we can't do from our office. So I'll look into that. Okay.
Any questions? Gertie, this is Roland. I think one of the biggest concerns with the, so far as the forum is concerned, is to be able to have a platform where we can maximize the public access to it. We want something that is going to be pretty easy for them to dial in or to link in, whatever the terminology may be. And the reason why I brought up the county board was because I know recently they had kind of like a forum or a discussion in which citizens of Arlington were able to either to call in and to pretty much express their concern on things. I think we would like something, and tell me if I'm on the right track, Latoya, where it would be the public, it'd be easy for the public to access it, and therefore we would be able to maximize the exposure of it.
Yeah, that's right. And that's one of the things that we had talked about, like the differences between some of the capabilities. Like even if we were to use platforms from like other organizations, or, like if for some reason we couldn't use these platforms, like we'd want, I know Susie has access to one, but I think it caps out at like 100 people. And so we wanted to be, because it's virtual, we anticipate hopefully that we would have over that number, and that's what we would be aiming for. So we'd want a platform that could really maximize the number of people. And, like you said, just have it as user-friendly as possible, knowing that we're going to have different demographics of people, technical capability, or lack thereof of some people. So really wanting to maximize that.
So I think that what you're referencing, Roland, is the same day I presented at the board on the ordinance, and at least from what Anna's sharing with me, and maybe she knows more, chime in if you want, Anna. It was an event through Teams, and I say event in quotes, and it was I think it allows for over like 200, 250 people to be on it. But I think the challenge you might have is just kind of, the organizationally, I think in advance they had all those people on lists and could go through them. That may not, I don't know how that will be possible here unless you knew exactly who was going to call in. But as far as capability of reaching folks over 50 or 100, I think Teams allows for that. Having said that, if you have specific platforms in mind, the best thing to do would be Kyle or someone just email me a list of them, and I can just check to see if that's even possible. And if you could add in there your lineup of speakers, that would help as well. Like, for example, I don't know if you're expecting someone from the county to speak, that may make a difference. I don't know if it would make a difference if it's all just, if it's just, if it's commissioners themselves speaking or a particular external speaker you have, I don't know if that would make a difference in terms of the platform versus, a team's requirement. So if you could send me that information, I can look into it.
Great. Thank you. Latoya, can you send Gertrude that information? You or Kyle?
Sure. Yeah, we can send the list of folks that we've so far thought of. We haven't, of course, reached out to them yet, but the folks that we're anticipating.
Okay, very good. So then we are looking at a September 3rd date. We're gonna work on pretty much getting a platform where we're going to be able to hopefully be able to maximize, public accessibility to something like that. And you have some idea as to the speakers that you're going to have. So I assume then we're on for the 3rd. Would that be correct, Latoya?
Sorry, I was trying to get off mute. Yes, that is correct. We just wanted to confirm that date was okay and make sure that there were no other approvals that we needed to be able to, once we start reaching out to speakers, to actually have that date set. And then similar, the same thing, just confirming that, as we're advertising for this, that we actually can say this is an Arlington County Human Rights Commission event versus we are citizens of Arlington.
Well, okay, I'll send that out as well, Latoya. Oh, okay. If you can, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Roland. If you can just shoot me an email with 3 things. 1, that question, can we advertise this as, an HRC event versus citizens of residents of Arlington? 2, the list of people or organizations you would like to invite. And then 3, the platforms that you and Susie or others may have been considering besides Teams. That would just, in one email, would be awesome. That way I can get the answers to you and you can start confirming the date.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. I think, although I think, and not to belabor the point, but I think since Gertie, we're going to be able to at least at a minimum use Microsoft Teams, that is definitely going to be an official Human Rights Commission forum, because when this was brought up and it was considered, no one had access to do anything.
Oh, okay.
And that was the big concern. That is, if we did something like that, because we just didn't know.
Right, understood.
We would have to do it as citizens. Now we understand we can do it as an official function of the Human Rights Commission. So that has pretty much been resolved.
Okay.
Okay, great. Am I correct, Latoya?
Yep, that's my understanding. So I'm glad you confirmed.
Very good. And Latoya, you may want to, even though you don't have the list of speakers, you may want to put together some little flyer or some notification or something of the forum, and maybe the topic of the forum and its location and stuff, so that we can get that out there. Because the sooner we get information like that out there, the greater we get it goes to the greater number of people, hopefully, will hear about it. So
agreed. Yes, we'll work on that and get something as soon as possible.
Fantastic. Excellent. Okay. Any more questions anyone have of the committee? Great. Very good. Thank you. Next item is the James B. Hunter. And I know, Paul, we haven't had a chance to have a meeting to discuss pretty much James B. Hunter. But did you have anything that you wanted to report on at this time?
Nothing to report. I'm just soliciting commissioners who want to work with me and others to do it again this year. But I kind of have the same sort of questions we just had with Tiffany Jocelyn. Are we going to do it virtually, and how we're going to do it? Hopefully, maybe we could have a plan in place to do it live, but I think it makes sense at this point to plan to do it virtually.
Okay. We have enough. The good thing about this, Paul, is we have enough time to think about how one's going to do this, because you can do it virtual, you can do presentations live. You just can't have a huge audience. As I understand what the county board has now done is they now allow commissions to meet. They do, however, encourage that we engage pretty much in social distancing. We do have the county board room that we can use for it, but we can use it to do presentations or, as opposed to having a live audience. I mean, we can work around it. So whenever you get your committee, one of the things you may want to start like looking at options is to how we're going to actually do the presentations. Okay.
Sure, absolutely.
But, yeah.
So if anybody wants to work on the subcommittee, please let me know. And then I had two other thoughts. As you all recall, last year we did not have a keynote speaker, and I was thinking we don't have one this year. We seem to do well without one, whichever format we use this year. I don't think we need to have a keynote speaker unless there's a strong desire to have one. And then the family has expressed interest in participating again. So with permission of the commission, I'd like to reach out to them and figure out a way. Yeah, I thought last year was really good and very moving. The family really appreciated being involved. And I think they want to stay involved, particularly the younger members. He had a couple of his grandkids, as you recall, were at the event in December, and they all came up to me and said, if they're in the area, they want to be involved. So I thought that was great.
Very good.
I think that's a good thing, Paul.
Great comment. So if you want to get involved with this, just let me know. That's all for right now. And I'll work on my video capability.
And also, Paul, did you want to put out any sort of announcement regarding the opening of the period of time for submission of nominations? You may want to think about doing that pretty soon, just to get something on the website like before.
All right, I'll get started on that. Yeah.
Hey,
Right.
Roland, can I?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Susie? Oh, no.
Yeah, I was going to ask a question. I don't actually know if this is appropriate to bring up. I think one of our previous award winners has recently been in the press. There were like some allegations, around, I think, sexual harassment, and so I don't necessarily mean to bring it up, sort of about him specifically. I think it sort of raises an issue of if we've had award winners in the past, and we generally do a background check, and I know the office does that, but I just, it's just something I wanted to ask at our meeting, whether it's something like we would retroactively like reconsider that, or, I mean, I don't think I haven't been following it. I just had seen it in a few headlines. And so I don't think anything had been substantiated or anything like that, but I just thought it was something that we should acknowledge, or if questions come through or anything like that, because these things just tend to come up, and then we get caught off guard, and we should at least have an answer or some kind of response.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. It was it's from Signature Theater. It was Eric Schaefer, and I think we awarded it back in 2017. And so the article I'm looking at is from like June 24th.
Yeah, which, by the way, Roland, wasn't too long ago. I think that's something that we should discuss. I just don't know whether we want to discuss it right now, but certainly there were my recollection is that there were allegations that were made, and the Signature Board of Trustees or Board of Directors looked into it, and they were pretty much satisfied with it, but there was an additional allegation and that was made from another person, and it was that coupled on with the allegation from the first person that pretty much led him to go ahead and to retire. But I think that is something that we should definitely consider, and we should have a discussion on it.
Yeah, I didn't mean for it
Yeah.
today necessarily, like maybe during the HRC committee and just when we're thinking about, I think we should just have a response, whatever that response, and we should just be thoughtful about it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. We should have a plan in place if this happens again in the future. So, okay, I'll put that on the list of things for the committee to consider, and then we'll get back to you. But thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, and Paul, also one of the things that you and the committee members should also consider, I think, is whether or not there should be something that comes from the that comes from the Human Rights Commission pretty much as a whole. So think about that as well. I mean, I don't think we should just sort of brush it off to the side. I think we should have a discussion on it. So if you can bring it up within that committee, that would be great. Okay?
Okay, absolutely.
Fantastic. And there was another question from someone that I didn't see, because I only have 3 people on my screen.
No, Roland, it was
Gurjeet.
Yeah, it was more of just a comment. I think as Paul, you go through the different ways of your considering doing this, I think the only thing to keep in mind is this event is typically in December, right? So just keeping in mind what we know now, and then what could be happening just with the pandemic, the flu, any second waves, or all that kind of stuff. You may want to just consider some backup planning, or you may just want to try to maybe start with virtual and see what you can do with that, just because we just don't know what's gonna happen then, and it might be hard to change then. That's all.
Okay. Yeah. Noted.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Okay, that's James B. Hunter. So the next item is new business, and under new business, the chair is going to recognize Whitney. Whitney, are you here? Whitney.
It's the unmuting. Sorry. It's the task of the unmute. Thanks, Roland. So as we all know, the coronavirus pandemic has been challenging and will continue to be so, particularly for Arlington's most vulnerable children. So the Arlington County Code states that, quote, "It is in the public interest of the county to assure that each citizen is treated fairly, provided equal protection under the law, and equal opportunity to participate in the benefits, rights, and privileges of community life," end quote. The statute also compels our commission to improve the quality of life in the county. An important goal is equal education for all who live in Arlington. And clearly, the quality of the state of education in Arlington County has an impact on the statutory purpose of improving the quality of life in Arlington, especially for people of color. Section 31(6)L also specifically states that a function of the commission is to, quote, "gather, discuss, and disseminate information about discrimination and human rights problems affecting community life in Arlington County," end quote. Due to community concerns regarding racial inequities within the educational system, I propose the creation of a task force on the state of education to research issues as to racial justice in education in Arlington. Where inequities exist, this task force should lead Arlington community in the development of a vision for what our community desires its school system to be in the long term. The task force would be charged with taking a holistic view of public education and determining how public schools can contribute to the enduring success of this community in its move towards anti-racism, focusing on connecting the strategic decisions of the county, APS, private employers, and other community members. Most importantly, the task force would make recommendations for changes in policy, funding, staffing, operations, and planning that will allow Arlington Public Schools to continue to promote anti-racist practices as the needs of our children and community evolve over the next several decades. I therefore move that the Arlington County Human Rights Commission establish a state of education task force to review and report back to the commission on the state of education in Arlington County for people of color.
Do I hear a second? Did I hear a second to the motion?
Second.
This is Susie, a second.
Second.
We get a second. So the chair now opens it up for questions or discussion. Does anyone have a question or would like to make any remark?
Hi, Roland. Walter here.
Hi, Walter. Okay. Yeah.
Hi. I think that's a great idea with the task forum like that. I was wondering also, since so much is going on with reforms and things like that, should we also include judicial reform and equity and income discrepancies within the Arlington County embedded within that task force to help what's going on in Arlington? Whitney, did you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's up to you guys. This is obviously just my first meeting being appointed. So because I mean, there's various types of inequities. I believe that it's easiest to start with racial inequities, just based on the data and or lack of data, and open up the task force. I wanted to start with something that was a little bit manageable, since I kind of don't know what I'm doing yet. But
no, I think you're doing a great job. Don't say that.
No. I mean, but I'm new, so I'm actively engaged. One of the things that I say oftentimes is, if you can look at the inequities and how they affect Black children, and change those tend to work for the greater good of all children. And so a lot of those things, particularly a lot of the social economic inequities, and even some of the ones dealing with students with disabilities, they're covered just by basis of looking at racial disparities.
Yeah. And
Right. Well, I just thought that we should also be thinking about all the issues related to judicial reform that is needed, or prison reform, and or income inequities, and having all that included would maybe eventually, Roland, we can have another task force related to those type of issues that we're currently seeing in the United States.
yeah, I think that's a very good point, Walter. And don't forget, Walter, what we can do, even though Whitney's motion is to deal specifically with education, someplace down the line, we can always, as we look at what is being done, we can always expand pretty much the mission to deal with other things. And I really do think that we should at some time be looking into what you just said, Walter, simply because that, as you know, is a part of was a big point that was made with that equity report that the commission had those people who were involved with that to come and speak to us. So I think you're right on the money that we should be looking at that. It's just that this particular proposal is for something just for education, but I think we should be also looking into the whole matter regarding finance, and maybe that can be another task force.
And I think that's great. I mean, I just thought, I just was throwing that as food for thought for us to have as commissioners, and being part of the community and seeing what's going on. We represent everybody at all levels, and so on. So maybe once the pandemic is over, we can have bring that up again. And I totally agree with Whitney that we should maybe start with this, this task force on education.
Very good. Okay, excellent.
This is Susie. I just, definitely, I think that Whitney, thanks for raising that. I think that's great. I agree. I think the education focus makes sense. Walter, to your point, I think, I would like to see what happens with the chief equity officer. If I hope that Gurjeet, I know you don't have much more information. I just hope it doesn't end up being a chief equity officer who's sort of a figurehead and the one woman of color who's sort of expected to take care of every problem related to diversity and equity. And I hope she has resources and a team and a budget and I know the whole group here agrees that it would be great to I think see what comes out of that and see how we can support and leverage anything that the county is doing. And so, like, I think that it sounds like that is supposed to address equity sort of more as a whole. So that might be a better place for us, for Walter, your idea to sort of be aligned with that effort. You know, there are other chief equity officers across the DC Metro that have been, you know, in place for several years. And I think it's been a mixed bag because they usually are under-resourced and there's a lot of burden, you know, and almost entire, I think most of them are Black women, you know, and so I think that there's sort of like been this unfair, not unfair, but you know what I mean? Like, I think there's a lot of information out there that these positions are not always resourced the way they should be.
Yeah, so we've, you know, I can definitely say that Mark is definitely committed to making sure it's an effective position. I don't have more information on resources at this time, just given everything that's going on with the budget. But as far as, you know, Samia Bird, who, as you know, is deputy county manager, and she's in a different role now, but she's been involved from the start with GARE, which is the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, and leading the cohort with that. I worked with her on that. And she was throughout all of our conversations before and beyond. She's been very interested in the subject. So it's definitely not one of those. I understand your concerns, but from what I've seen up front and close, it's not one of those things where she was just tasked with it. It was something she was really interested in doing and had long and lengthy discussions with the county manager on it. I also hear your concern about the burden put on chief equity officers, but I think partly just like equity work in the county, I think it's important just to remember that chief equity officers as a whole are a new position. I mean, just like compliance has been a new position for the last few decades. It's not like CFOs or CIOs, right? It's a new position in general. So I think that's part of the challenge. I think the other challenge, which is an opportunity, a great opportunity, in fact, but I think the other part of the challenge is that we're just in the county starting the whole discussion on equity. So it's great that we have a leader now in this position who can carry that forward, but it is definitely acknowledged by everyone in the county ELT manager that this is not just on one person. It's a collective effort and responsibility. You can't put it on one person or it just won't work. They're really a guide. So, but I appreciate that. And now I'll share those sentiments, Susie.
Thanks, Gurjeet. That's really helpful.
Yep.
Very good. Any more comments?
I have a remark. Yes, I absolutely support this. I think it's a great thing for the Human Rights Commission to have a task force addressing the topics here. Whitney, I wanted just to be clear, just help me understand, are you thinking that we should be covering all underrepresented groups or just a specific to the Black population that attending school at Arlington schools?
Right now, we're doing racial inequity. So I don't really love the terminology minority, but any non-white or non-white population and making sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I certainly support that, and I support you in the task force.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more comments?
Ms. Latoya, same. I 100% support. I think it's a great idea and look forward to helping if I can.
Great. There be any more questions? The chair put it to a vote. All in favor, say aye, and raise your hand so I can see everyone.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Did I get someone opposed? No. Okay, so that's unanimous. And if anyone is interested in working with Whitney on this, please contact her. Correct, Whitney?
Please. Absolutely.
On this as well. So we would hopefully at the next meeting, Whitney, you'll be able to report on pretty much what the task
Without a doubt.
is doing.
Yep, without a doubt.
Okay, very good. Excellent. The next item is future meetings. And the reason why the chair put that up there was because normally during the month of August, we kind of take a vacation. But since we have not met since February, the chair wants to find out from the members of the commission whether you want to meet in August. it's pretty much up to members of the commission. It would be, again, a virtual meeting like this in the month of August. Any comments?
I support it, Roland. This is Kyle. I think the fact that we're not doing a July outreach at the fair, it sounds like, or whenever it might or might not be scheduled, doesn't appear to be happening. And the fact that we haven't met for several months, I think that having a meeting in August is probably the right thing to do. And I'd support that and I would attend.
This is Latoya. I agree with that. And I think particularly as we continue to plan for Tiffany Jocelyn, that's going to be, hopefully we'll, have it September 3rd, and that'll give us some group time to share on that, and then updates that Whitney will have on the new task force. And I think those are, especially as we get into the new school year, I particularly think that would be very important. I'm sure there'll be a lot of things for discussion. And for the same reason that Kyle said, we haven't met in a while, I think it would be great. And hopefully at that next one, we could have full of, other members that are not here, Carol and Sukari, that could attend as well.
Very good.
You're rolling. This is Paul. Let's get back to work.
Wow.
Love it.
Very good. So
short and sweet.
So the chair then is going to, we're gonna have a meeting then pretty much in the month of August. Thank you, everyone. And again, it would be a virtual meeting. And then the final thing that I have, and it really isn't on the agenda simply because I got this today. I mean, I just got this this afternoon. And Kyle, it pretty much is, even though it is addressed to me, it is an area I think that comes under the jurisdiction of the standing committee. So I will read the letter. It's very, very short. And then I'll send it to you. And it would be very good if you can report on this, on some aspect of this by pretty much the next meeting. And it's addressed to the Arlington Human Rights Commission, and it's from the Black Parents of Arlington. And it says, "Dear members of the Human Rights Commission, Black Parents of Arlington is a community organization seeking to improve the lives of Black children in Arlington by securing equitable treatment in the realm of education, criminal justice, and access to opportunities and resources. We are writing to bring to light our concerns regarding possible disparities in the hiring, promotion, and retention of classroom teachers of color in Arlington public schools, particularly Black teachers. APS supplies data which fails to disaggregate classroom teachers from other types of staff members. Our concern that while on the face of its data, APS seems to hire a proportionate amount of Black staff, that Black staff tends to have lower level positions such as paraprofessionals, custodians, and extended day staff. We believe that APS should employ at a bare minimum a proportionate number of Black classroom teachers to the number of Black residents in our community. Moreover, research has clearly shown that Black teachers improve outcomes for Black children. We have a duty to our community, and most particularly to our children, to ensure equity in their education and to investigate, promote, and protect their rights. To that end, Black Parents of Arlington request of the EEO Standing Committee looks into the county workforce. I'm sending this to you to look into this and to pretty much report on it at the next meeting, which would be in August.
Got it. Thank you, Roland.
Okay.
Hey, Ro, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
This is Gurjeet. Does anybody know if there's, I know there's a distinction between the school board and the Arlington County Board. So does anyone know if there's already a group out there working with the school board on these issues or no?
No, there's not.
Okay.
I know that this whole matter has been something that Kyle's committee has been looking into, the school board system, something they've been concerned about. So, Kyle, I will send you also this as well. And again, I apologize,
Sure.
but I just got it this afternoon, just a couple of hours ago.
No, that's fine. We certainly have the Arlington Public School leadership on the upcoming discussions about their hiring and recruitment processes, and certainly might be something to get them started to start investigating and get ready for that next meeting that they have at one of our Human Rights Commission meetings.
Okay, very good. Okay. Next item on the agenda, members' reports. Does any members have anything they would like to report? Just yell out your name and report. Okay. So we don't have any members want to report. That is it. And the chair then would entertain a motion. Well, what do you think of the virtual meeting? Is this okay? Do we want to stick with this for the next time?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Okay,
Yes.
very good. So the chair at this time entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Anyone second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Hi.
Meeting adjourned. Stay safe, everyone.
Bye,
Good seeing
guys.
you.
Bye.
Stay safe,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Good meeting. Nice to see everybody.
Same to you.